Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Gravity Daze walkthrough. This is episode 3, it is called Home Sweet Home. So now that Kat has moved into the sewers, we're going to be furnishing it with some essentials, and to do this you're going to have to go towards the waypoint, and then you're going to have to use the gravity move, which is a little bit finicky, and it's not my favourite aspect of the game, but it is incredibly powerful if you get good with it, and if you use it more than I'm going to probably use it. So I do recommend it. But this first one over here is a chair. So if you hold circle, you will generate the stasis field, and it will pick up objects and people. Once you've done this, they will then follow you when you move throughout the world. You can use this to throw things at bad guys and escort civilians. It's a mechanic the game is going to rely on a little bit, and it's interesting. Once again, like I've mentioned in the first video, this game has you doing some pretty simplistic things, but it mixes them up and it mixes the expectations of them up enough so that it always feels kind of jovial and really fun. And it has this really light-hearted spirit to it, where you're doing silly RPG things, then you're doing silly platforming things, then you're doing more serious, dramatic things, and I think it's got a really good flow to it. I also think the music is amazing too. It's got really nice uplifting music, some of it's really jazzy and great, and then the graphical overlay that it does for distanced images is one of the best I've ever seen, because it makes it look like it's been sketched, and it's just got a fantastic aesthetic that normally in a game when you look into the distance you notice how bad things look, you notice how low resolution they are, or you notice that there's not that much detail or that things are popping in or jaggy, whereas in this game you literally look like you're looking into an artist's sketchbook, and it's one of those aesthetics that just really works. And it's also colourful too, it's got that pastel edge to it, and just a really beautiful style. There's a crossfade here guys, because I went down the sewer and it didn't bring the piece of furniture with me, because you have to carry it like I'm doing so right now. But do you see that crazy thing floating in the air? When you pick those up, it completely refills your gravity bar, and it's really important for certain boss fights and just for navigational purposes. Additionally, you've probably noticed those glowing purple jewels that are hanging about everywhere. I'm not going to be collecting too many of them, even though it's kind of ridiculous not to, because one of the main draws of this game is picking up those jewels. They are the upgrade components. When you pick up those jewels, you can use them to purchase skills. I will run into them throughout the game, but I'm not going to make a conscious effort to find them like I did on my first playthrough, and I had a ton of fun doing that, because this is a walkthrough and I want to help you get through the game, and I'm probably going to be a lot more limited than on my first run, so it might make it a little bit more difficult. That being said, the only part of this game that I felt was difficult was a Freefall mission where you're chasing Raven down this tree. And the checkpoint is very bad on that section. I had base life, I'd never upgraded it, and I had base evade, so getting to the bottom without dying was insanely difficult. Really difficult too. There's nothing in this game that I disliked except for that section, and that section stood out massively because it just didn't feel fun and I was getting really frustrated with it. But I'm happy to report on this run I'm going to try and have more upgrades for my evades and hopefully be able to do it a little bit better, understand it a bit better, and then kick its ass. But this is another one of the Navi. This one will charge at you really quickly, so you have to watch him start running, dodge, and then dive kick his bottom. Kick him in the ass. Depending on the damage that your dive kick does will depend on how much damage you do. Technically, it's a gravity kick, but I'm going to call it a dive kick because, why not? And then a couple more Navi are going to turn up, and you'll notice they're also firing the Ikaruga Polarity Balls it is. And what I'm doing now is what you need to get into the habit of doing. Whenever you want to get out of somewhere, just send her that direction. Get out of there, change direction, go up, go down, go left. Try and be as mobile as possible, and that way you'll dodge a ton of stuff. When Kat is floating, she can evade, but it's really clunky and it's not the best because it's got recovery on it, and unless you upgrade it, it might not be a really smart choice in my opinion. I'd rather get out of there with a dive kick or get onto a roof by just free falling than messing around too much with the evade. Additionally, if you played this on the PSP, you could change the direction when you're floating by moving the PSP and using is it a 6-axis that it had built into it? That sounds bizarre to me. That right there is an example of what the combat could be like, where I started my combo, he did his attack, I dodged through it and kicked, but that's the limit of demanding combat that you're going to see. And if I did have to criticise this game, which I'm going to do because it does have a couple issues, the first one is they could make a compelling action game out of this. They could keep all the stuff they have now, they could just make it so that the enemies are maybe a little bit more aggressive, that the evade is a little bit more rewarding and fun to do, and chained together so it feels like you're dodging bullets, akin to something like Nier, which is an example of like a shmup and an action game. And when you're fighting the enemies, they could have easily given Cat more combos, they could have given the enemies more combos, they could have given you, you know, modifiers on those combos, and they could have just made it a little bit more, shall we say, Platinum-esque, insert action game you like-esque, and I think it would really reward it. And the great news is, this game's getting a sequel, so there's a chance we might see a lot of those improvements implemented, because I think that this game is possibly a victim of being a PlayStation Vita game, sorry, not a PSP game. Even though when I say PSP, I mean all PlayStation Portable stuff. But people like to get specific, because I understand it can be confusing. But thank you for watching anyhow, guys, and as always, you take care now.